The school cafeteria was a storm of noise and chaos, the clatter of trays and bursts of laughter filling the stale air. Miss Harper, the substitute teacher, scanned the crowded room, her heart catching on one boy seated alone. His clothes were worn, and his eyes held a quiet hunger, deeper than any lunch could satisfy. She approached him, voice gentle but firm. "Hey, you look like you could use something to eat." The boy's eyes flickered up, wary but hopeful. "I'm not supposed to accept charity," he said softly. "But, thank you." She handed him her lunch without hesitation. That single act, unnoticed by most, planted a seed. Years later, that boy, once silent and invisible, rose to become the welfare secretary, a role charged with protecting others like him. Now, in the gleaming offices of government, he supports the very teacher who believed in him when no one else did. Their paths crossed again, proof that compassion can echo across lifetimes, reshaping destinies with quiet courage and unexpected grace. The school bell rang with the usual clamor, but Miss Harper's mind was elsewhere. She remembered the boy's haunted eyes, a silent plea for something more than lessons and grades. In those halls filled with laughter and learning, many faces blurred past her, but his remained sharp, etched with hardship and hope. She wondered how many others slipped through the cracks like him. "Sometimes," she murmured, "it's not about the curriculum, it's about being seen." The lunch had been a small gesture, but it sparked a quiet revolution inside both their lives. As days turned to years, she thought often about what became of that quiet boy. Fate, it seemed, had its own curriculum, one where kindness could rewrite futures and transform the powerless into advocates. This was just the beginning of a story neither could yet fully understand. That boy's struggles were many: empty cupboards at home, whispered fears of eviction, and silent fights against despair. Miss Harper often caught glimpses of his resilience beneath the surface, a strength forged in adversity. When she bought him that lunch, it wasn't charity but an unspoken pact that someone believed he mattered. Years later, the boy, now a man, would say, "That moment made me see possibility." His climb wasn't easy. It was marked by sacrifice, late-night studying, and battles with bureaucracy. Yet, the seed planted in that cafeteria nurtured his vision, to build systems that could lift others up, to become a beacon for those left behind. In the end, the substitute teacher's simple act echoed far beyond the walls of that school. The city buzzed around them, a world of polished power and unseen struggles. Miss Harper's visit to the government building was more than a reunion. It was a testament to enduring kindness and unexpected paths. "You changed my life," the man told her, voice steady but laden with emotion. "You saw me when no one else did." She smiled, the years folding gently between them. "We all need someone to believe in us." Their stories intertwined. Teacher and student, giver and receiver, each shaped by that fragile moment in a crowded cafeteria. In that office, amidst papers and policies, they were reminded that human connection remains the most powerful catalyst for change. As they parted that day, the welfare secretary handed Ms. Harper a folder of new initiatives aimed at improving social programs. "Because of you," he said, "I fight harder." She tucked the folder close, heart full. The past had converged with the present, and a shared purpose ignited between them. The lunch was never just a meal. It was the first page of a story about hope, resilience, and the profound impact one act of kindness can have across time. In a world often defined by systems and statistics, their bond was a reminder that behind every policy, every number, is a human life waiting to be seen and supported. The welfare secretary faced a daunting challenge: how to modernize a system bogged down by bureaucracy and indifference. His office buzzed with urgent calls and the rustle of policy drafts. He recalled the cafeteria's quiet lunch, the small act that once gave him hope. Now, every decision carried the weight of countless unseen faces, each one waiting for a chance. "We must do more than just manage," he thought. "We must transform." Behind the polished facade of government halls, he met with activists, social workers, and families, listening to stories of struggle and resilience. The path ahead was steep and fraught with opposition, but his resolve was unshakable. In his mind, the teacher's kindness was a beacon, guiding his efforts to turn empathy into action. This was no longer just his journey, it was a movement for change. In a cramped community center, Miss Harper led a workshop on empathy and support, her voice steady and encouraging. The room was filled with volunteers and social workers, their faces marked by fatigue, but lit with hope. Stories poured out, parents fighting to keep their homes, children facing hunger, seniors battling isolation. She spoke of her past, of the boy whose life was changed by a simple act of kindness. Her message was clear. Change begins with seeing each person's humanity. Outside, the city pulsed with indifferent energy, but inside those walls, a seed of compassion was growing. Miss Harper knew the battle was far from over, yet every shared story, every tear and smile, was a step toward a kinder future. Together, they forged a fragile but fierce network of support. Back in the government halls, the secretary faced skepticism and resistance. Budget cuts loomed, and some colleagues dismissed his vision as idealistic. He listened but pressed on, drawing strength from his own journey. Late nights blurred into early mornings, drafting proposals and meeting with advocates. He recalled the teacher's smile, the boy's quiet gratitude, the simple lunch that set him on this path. His mission was more than policy. It was about restoring dignity and hope to those forgotten by the system. Each small victory, a new program approved, a family helped, fueled his determination. Though the climb was steep, the summit promised a future where no one would be invisible. His story and hers were threads woven into a larger tapestry of change. The secretary's efforts began to ripple outward. New partnerships with nonprofits and local leaders sparked innovative programs addressing food insecurity and housing. Ms. Harper volunteered to help coordinate outreach, bridging the gap between policy and community. Together, they visited shelters and schools, listening, learning, and adapting. Their collaboration was a beacon in a tangled system, proof that empathy could fuel real progress. In quiet moments, they reflected on how far they had come, from a simple lunch in a noisy cafeteria to this shared crusade. The road remained long and uncertain, but hope was no longer fragile. It was a force, growing stronger with every hand joined in the fight for dignity. The climax approached when a major funding proposal came before the council. The secretary prepared meticulously, aware that success meant more than money. It meant lives changed. Ms. Harper stood beside him, a quiet pillar of support. The room was tense, voices rising with debate and doubt. Then, with steady conviction, he spoke of the boy who once sat hungry in a cafeteria, of the power one small act could hold. Silence fell. The proposal passed by a narrow margin. As applause broke, the secretary caught Ms. Harper's eye, and in that moment, they both knew the fight was just beginning. But together, they had sparked a light no darkness could extinguish. The new programs were underway, but challenges emerged quickly. The secretary and Miss Harper faced logistical hurdles and public skepticism. Meetings stretched late into the night, voices often raised in frustration. Yet amid setbacks, stories of change surfaced, a mother securing stable housing, a child's laughter after a warm meal. The secretary reflected on the journey, remembering the boy's shy smile and the teacher's quiet kindness. Those memories fueled his perseverance. They knew this was only the beginning, that real change required relentless effort. Every step forward was hard-won, but the ripple effects promised a future where no one would face hunger or cold alone. One rainy afternoon, the secretary visited a shelter, greeted by grateful smiles and cautious hope. Volunteers bustled, handing out food and warm clothes. Children huddled under blankets, their eyes wide with curiosity and relief. The secretary knelt to speak with a mother, her voice thick with gratitude. Outside, the storm mirrored the harsh realities they faced daily. Yet inside, a quiet resilience glowed. The secretary saw firsthand the impact of their efforts, realizing that policy translated into human lives, full of complexity and courage. That day renewed his commitment. Change was no longer a distant ideal. It was a living, breathing reality. News coverage began to highlight the programs, stirring public debate. Supporters praised the secretary's vision. Critics warned of wasted resources. The secretary watched the divide with concern, but remained focused. He reached out to community leaders, inviting dialogue over division. Ms. Harper organized forums where voices once unheard found platforms. Together, they navigated political minefields and media scrutiny. The stakes were higher than ever, but their alliance grew stronger. They reminded each other that progress is rarely smooth, and every challenge was an opportunity to learn and adapt. The future was uncertain, but hope remained their compass. At a community event under clear skies, the secretary and Ms. Harper joined families and volunteers celebrating small victories. Children played, laughter filled the air, and banners displayed messages of hope. The secretary spoke briefly, his words simple but heartfelt, acknowledging the hard work behind the scenes. Ms. Harper connected with participants, gathering feedback and smiles. This was the tangible result of their efforts. A moment of shared joy and renewed energy. They knew the work was far from over. But today was a reminder that every act of kindness builds a better world, brick by brick, heart by heart. In a quiet office late at night, the secretary and Ms. Harper reviewed the year's progress. They spoke of obstacles and breakthroughs, their voices soft but filled with hope. The boy from the cafeteria was now a symbol of their mission, a reminder that a single moment could ripple outward endlessly. Their journey had transformed from a personal quest into a movement of compassion and change. As the city slept, they planned new initiatives, knowing the path ahead remained challenging. But in that silence they found strength, because together they had ignited a light that would endure. A sudden crisis struck the city. Unprecedented storms battered neighborhoods, flooding streets and displacing families. The welfare secretary and Ms. Harper immediately mobilized emergency response teams. Shelters filled quickly as volunteers worked around the clock, distributing supplies. The secretary's phone buzzed nonstop with calls for help. Despite exhaustion, the team's determination never wavered. The storm tested every system they'd built, pushing their resolve to the edge. Still, amidst the chaos, moments of humanity shone through. Neighbors helping neighbors, strangers offering shelter, hope rising from the storm's darkness. The days following the storm were grueling. Damage reports poured in as officials assessed the destruction. The secretary toured the hardest-hit areas, speaking with displaced families sheltered in gyms and community centers. Ms. Harper organized mental health support for those traumatized by loss. The city's fabric was torn, but its people refused to be broken. The secretary felt the weight of responsibility keenly, but also the collective strength rising from shared hardship. Each story of survival reinforced the reason behind their work, fueling their commitment to rebuild, not just buildings, but lives. As recovery efforts progressed, the secretary faced political pushback. Critics questioned the costs and effectiveness of relief programs. Heated debates unfolded in City Hall, with the secretary standing firm on transparency and accountability. Ms. Harper rallied public support through social media and town halls. The divide was stark, but the secretary believed in bridging gaps through dialogue. He revisited the mother from the shelter and the boy who once sat quietly in the cafeteria, reminders that policies were not just numbers, but real lives transformed. In the end, the fight for compassion was a fight for the city's soul. Despite challenges, small victories emerged. A new community center opened, offering education and healthcare services to vulnerable residents. The secretary attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, greeted by smiling faces and heartfelt thanks. Ms. Harper captured moments on camera, preserving stories of resilience. The secretary's gaze lingered on the children playing freely, their laughter a balm for weary hearts. Progress was slow, but tangible. The storm's scars remained, but so did the unwavering spirit of a city determined to rise. Together, they embraced the future with cautious optimism and renewed hope. As night fell over the city, the secretary and Ms. Harper met once more in the quiet office where it all began. They reflected on the journey, the storms weathered, the lives touched, the battles fought. The secretary's hand rested lightly on a photo of the boy who inspired their mission. No words were needed. The moment spoke of enduring hope and relentless dedication. They understood that the path ahead remained uncertain but were ready to face it together. Their shared vision burned brighter than ever, a testament to what can be achieved when compassion leads the way. The city awakened to a dawn filled with promise and reflection. The welfare secretary stood before a crowd gathered in the central plaza, ready to deliver a speech that would mark a new chapter. He spoke of resilience, community, and the power of unity after so much adversity. Ms. Harper captured every moment, her lens focused on the faces of those whose lives were intertwined with this journey. The secretary's words echoed through the crisp morning air, reminding all that recovery was not an endpoint, but a continuous mission fueled by hope and collective strength. In a quiet corner of the city park, the secretary and Miss Harper took a moment to reflect away from the crowd. The park was alive with laughter and renewal. Children played under sunlit trees, elders shared stories on benches. The secretary expressed gratitude for the community's unwavering spirit. Harper shared a photo of the boy, now healthy and smiling, proof that their efforts bore fruit. They discussed future plans to expand programs emphasizing education and opportunity. Their partnership, forged in crisis, was now a beacon of hope for many. Back at City Hall, the secretary met with advisors and community leaders to strategize the next steps. The room buzzed with energy and determination. Maps and charts lined the walls, highlighting areas for growth and investment. The secretary emphasized transparency and inclusivity, insisting every voice be heard. Ms. Harper documented the session, knowing these moments shaped the city's future. The collaboration was intense but inspiring. Plans for housing, health, and education were drafted with bold ambition. The secretary felt the weight, but also the power of shared vision. Evening fell as the secretary visited a newly renovated neighborhood. Streets glowed with fresh lights, storefronts reopened, and neighbors gathered for an outdoor community meal. Laughter and music filled the air, a celebration of survival and renewal. The secretary moved through the crowd, exchanging smiles and stories. Miss Harper captured candid moments of joy and connection. It was a testament to resilience, not just rebuilding structures but restoring hope. The city's heart beat strong once again, fueled by the unbreakable bonds formed in the hardest times. As night deepened, the secretary and Miss Harper stood overlooking the city skyline from a rooftop. Lights twinkled like stars, a visual symphony of life and progress. The secretary reflected on the journey, each challenge, each triumph, each soul touched. Harper quietly clicked her camera, capturing the moment of quiet victory. Tomorrow held unknowns, but their resolve was steadfast. Together, they had faced storms, both literal and figurative, and emerged stronger. The future was theirs to shape, illuminated by compassion and hope. The dawn air was crisp as the welfare secretary stepped onto the balcony overlooking the awakening city. His mind raced with the weight of decisions ahead, balancing hope with realism. The city below stirred quietly, a mosaic of lives shaped by their collective past. He knew this day would test his leadership, announcing new reforms that promised change, but invited resistance. Meanwhile, Miss Harper prepared her equipment nearby, ready to capture the gravity of the moment. Together, they braced for the challenge, knowing the story was far from over. Inside the City Hall chamber, the secretary faced a packed room of city officials and reporters. Cameras flashed as he began outlining his vision for affordable housing and education reforms. His voice was steady, conviction palpable despite the tension. Questions came fast, some hostile, others hopeful. Miss Harper circled the room, framing moments of interaction, furrowed brows, nodding heads, skeptical glances. This wasn't just a policy announcement, it was a test of trust between the government and its people. After the meeting, the secretary and Miss Harper walked through the city's oldest neighborhood, witnessing the effects of neglect firsthand. Broken sidewalks and faded murals told stories of forgotten promises. The secretary spoke quietly about the importance of revitalization, not just physical but social. Harper captured the peeling paint and hopeful faces of residents gathering in small groups. The air was heavy with past disappointment, but also a tentative spark of renewal, as plans from the meeting echoed in every corner. As twilight descended, the city park transformed into a gathering place for a grassroots rally, supporting the secretary's reforms. People carried signs and shared stories of struggle and hope. The secretary mingled with attendees, listening and offering reassurances. Ms. Harper's camera focused on intimate moments, hands clasped, eyes filled with determination, and the subtle smiles of solidarity. The scene was a vivid reminder that change was a collective effort, grounded in the courage of ordinary people demanding a better future. Night cloaked the city as the secretary and Miss Harper stood on the rooftop once more, surveying the urban sprawl illuminated below. The secretary spoke softly of resilience, the trials endured, and the work that still lay ahead. Harper captured the serene yet powerful moment, the city alive, full of dreams and determination. They knew the journey was far from over, but the seeds of transformation were firmly planted. Together, they looked toward the future with cautious optimism, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. The early morning fog cloaked the city's waterfront, shrouding the skyline in a muted gray haze. The welfare secretary stood alone on the pier, watching the waves lap gently against the dock. His mind replayed the recent weeks, the victories, setbacks, and growing unrest. Today marked a pivotal turning point. The city's fate hinged on the upcoming council vote. He took a deep breath, steeling himself against the weight of responsibility and uncertainty. The distant call of a foghorn echoed, underscoring the fragile calm before the storm. Inside the council chamber, tension crackled like static electricity. The secretary presented his final appeal, voice steady yet passionate. Council members exchanged glances, some skeptical, others hopeful. Heated debates flared, each word weighted with the future of the community. Ms. Harper captured the intensity with her camera. The furrowed brows, clenched fists, and subtle nods of agreement. Outside, citizens gathered anxiously, their hopes reflected in the flickering lights of their handheld devices, waiting for the verdict that could change everything. As the vote concluded, the chamber fell silent. The secretary's heart pounded with anticipation. The chairperson announced the decision, unanimous support for the reforms. Relief and joy surged through the room. The secretary's smile was tempered by the knowledge of the hard work ahead, but for a moment, victory was theirs. Outside, a spontaneous cheer erupted from the crowd gathered in the plaza. Ms. Harper framed the scene, people hugging, tears of joy, and the secretary shaking hands with supporters. The city's long-awaited dawn was breaking. The evening sun cast long shadows over the city streets as the secretary visited a newly renovated community center. Children laughed and played while adults shared stories and plans for the future. The secretary joined a circle of residents, listening with genuine empathy. Miss Harper's camera caught the candid warmth, hands clasped, bright eyes, genuine smiles. This was the heart of the change, people reclaiming their neighborhood, their lives intertwined with renewed purpose. The secretary felt a profound sense of fulfillment and resolve to protect this fragile progress. Night enveloped the city, but the secretary's office remained illuminated. He reviewed documents and messages, the glow of his desk lamp highlighting his focused expression. Outside, the city buzzed softly with life, distant sirens, murmurs of late-night traffic. He paused, reflecting on the journey and the road ahead. Change was never easy or swift, but tonight marked a new chapter. With determination hardening his resolve, he prepared to face the challenges still to come, knowing that every step forward was a victory in itself.